Hello, Namaskar, Adab, Sasyakal, Kasakai, Kedohalai, Kem Cho. Welcome to Spotlight with Abha, and I'm your host, Abha Jadhav. Friends, today I have brought an amazing international storyteller from UK. He is UK's only blind professional storyteller, known for his strong voice, language, and storytelling. He believes that there is a magic in storytelling, an art that in many places and in many people's heart has been forgotten, or maybe is just shadowed by the business of daily life. There is something beautiful in it, a calmness, an escape, a treasure, a safe return home. Friends, please help me welcome Giles Abbott from UK. Welcome, Giles, on Spotlight with Abha.
Thank you very much. Namaste.
Namaste. So, friends, before we know more about Giles' work and listen to an interesting story from him, let me give his brief introduction. Giles Abbott is an award-winning storyteller and an experienced vocal coach. He tells stories for all ages at club nights, festivals, and schools. He provides storytelling workshops for children to increase literacy, promote team working, and to inspire imagination. For adults, his workshops give confidence and to remain us how to create and tell compelling story, helping anyone to lose themselves, find themselves in the world evoked by our words. He has worked with major companies such as ITV and Red Bull, using vocal skills to enhance presentation and speech writing, as well as teaching voice at drama schools. He is also available for voiceover work. His repertoire includes Iron Age myth from British and Norse traditions, Greek myths, folk tales from around the world. All can be told in traditional style or with a more modern twist. He also creates original and bespoke storytelling from historical sources and for site-specific venues. There is a lot more to talk about Giles, but I think it will be better if Giles talk about it further. Giles, you are really doing an amazing work in the field of storytelling.
Thank you very, very much.
So to begin with, when did you start the journey of storytelling? What inspired you to take storytelling as a career?
In 1998, I very suddenly lost most of my sight. Not all of it, but I lost the ability to read books, see faces across see faces further away than a foot. And I was very ill for at least a year. But as I was recovering, I was living then with the woman who is now my wife and has been the love of my life for 24 years. But we were living in West Yorkshire in England. And somebody said, come down to this pub in a village down the valley. They've got a storyteller. And I thought, really? We went down and I heard local storytellers telling stories set in and around the beautiful valley where we lived. And I thought, this is amazing. And I thought, I can do this because if I can hear a story, then I don't need to see it written down. And they kept talking about how they had an open spot at the end of the evening for anybody in the audience who had a story to tell. And they kept saying that they had a beginner's workshop coming up. Well, we had no money for that because when I got sick, earnings just went. Anyway, but I was thinking if I could get my dyslexic girlfriend, we'd worked out she was dyslexic when she started having to read my letters to me. If I could get her to read me a book about how to tell a story, then maybe in 6 months' time, I might have a 10-minute story ready. But when the open spot came, the host said, put your hands together, welcome a newcomer to the club, somebody who's never told a story in public before, please welcome Suze. Suze is my girlfriend, now my wife. And I had a Scooby-Doo moment. Do you know what I mean by Scooby-Doo moment?
Yeah, please.
And this beautifully intelligent, wonderful, but profoundly dyslexic woman who sometimes says half a word or a whole word backwards, got up to the front and told a story brilliantly. A story from her father's childhood. And she sat down, and she's never done it since. She said, I don't know why I did it. I just felt I had to for you. Because by the time she'd sat down, I thought, okay, that's how you get up and tell a story. Because the reason she could tell that story that night is the day before to me. I thought, that's how you could tell a story. You know how it goes. You know what's got to happen. Just get up, open your mouth. So the following month, when the Storytelling Club met again, Shaggy Dog Stories, just a joke that I'd heard, which seemed to fit the theme of the evening, improvised it into a 10-minute story. And it went from there.
Wow, this is really great. So every storyteller has his own flair and forte of storytelling. So what is your style of storytelling?
I guess my style of storytelling is driven by language. My first degree was in English language and literature. My parents were both literature junkies. They were both literature teachers at some points in their life. So that was my kitchen table culture, if you like. And then also, yes, use of voice, which has always been a feature of my storytelling, starting with a talent which I've since developed into a skill. And so I use voice to create characters, to differentiate character from narrator. I use voice to build tension, to release tension, to various other sound effects. I use voice. Oh, the other day I was telling stories in a cemetery in London for London Month of the Dead, for an evening organised by A Curious Invitation. And I used my voice to scare the life out of the audience in different stories. In one story I screamed, really screamed, in the character of a woman, so it really had to be high up, and it was. And then the other one was the jump story, and my wife, who knew the story and was sat really close, she knew what was coming. You know, when you go really quiet, and then suddenly you go really loud. She knew exactly what was coming, but she told me afterwards she still jumped out of her shoes. So yeah, voice and language, I suppose.
Great. So, what services do you offer other than being a storyteller?
I'm a voice teacher. It's another thing I learned to do as a result of the sight loss. And the guy, Alan Sparks, who was mentoring me in storytelling, mentioned a famous English voice teacher called Frankie Armstrong, and he also mentioned that she's blind. And I thought, right, I'm having that. It was only after I started training that I fell in love with teaching. So I love teaching students in drama schools, but I also teach business people for if they need to present better. I've worked a number of times with people who feel that their career is being held back because they get panic attacks, usually because they've been bullied at some point in their childhood. And I work with teaching them skills they can use to overcome that rising panic and deal with it better. I've also worked with organizations on stories they need to tell. So I've worked with charities on how they can use the forms and structures that lie beneath the world's most powerful stories. For example, the same narrative structure that lies beneath Star Wars and every James Bond film you've ever seen also lies beneath Ramayana. And I teach people how to use that and other structures depending on what they need to communicate. And I've done that with companies, charities, and I've also used it to a very famous museum in London, the National Science Museum, asked me to consult with them on creating the story that would guide all of the exhibition content in an entire wing devoted to telling the story of communication technology. So, I mean, to me, I love traditional storytelling, but to me, story is much bigger than any one idiom. Because you've got story, well, you've got story in traditional storytelling, but also in novel writing, in poetry, in filmmaking, in theatre, in dance, in spoken word, it's everywhere. And I'm very interested in the things which lie beneath the surface, which make it work. Does that make sense?
Yes. Great. So, Giles, have you ever been to India? Or have you ever participated in any of the storytelling festivals in India? If yes, please share the experience.
Oh, yes. I can't remember when it was. I think it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I was invited by the brilliant Gahilote sisters, who organized the Kataka International Storytelling Festival. And so I visited with them, and my wife came with me, which was brilliant because she was there to be my eyes and tell me what I'm missing and tell me the things I'd like to know. And I performed there. And then 6 months, the audience was so generous, they even gave me a standing ovation when I told East of the Sun, West of the Moon. What an honor. And then they invited me back 6 months later. So the first visit, it was organized in association with British Council. So I performed at the festival in New Delhi, but I also visited Kolkata and Chandigarh and taught workshops there for teachers and members of the public. And then the second visit was Delhi, Chandigarh, and Hyderabad, Mumbai, and Bengaluru.
Wow. So you have been so many times to India, right?
Well, twice.
Okay.
My impression was, it's the same as anybody on the road. My impression was of airports, shopping centers, libraries, and hotels. But the festivals itself, just being able to hear Indians telling stories in different styles, different languages. So it might be somebody doing Kataka style telling, or it might be somebody doing Pandvani style telling, or it might be there was a young man kneeled. He just stayed on his knees, beautifully dressed, and he was telling stories in Urdu. And the only thing, his lower body didn't move, but his hands and his face, and I don't speak Urdu. I know one word, shukriya. But the skill and the power and the depth of the tradition. And I also met Indian people who were brilliant and courteous and hospitable and generous and funny and gracious and just wonderful. Yes, my wife and I both adored our visits.
Wow, that's really wonderful to know. So, how did you lose your eyesight, Giles?
Oh, it was
what
a game
exactly
of
has
cards.
happened? Yeah.
It was a game of cards. No, it wasn't. It was an illness. Do you know an illness called multiple sclerosis? No? Okay, so it's an inflammatory condition which affects the brain and the central nervous system. And so when my eyesight went, it also causes paralysis and various other things leading up to, in some people, death, but not for me, not yet. And I've had some experience of partial paralysis when I was 25, 26, 27. But I've been in good health, mostly consistently, for quite a long time. So yeah, my first eye took 5 days for me to lose all the focal vision right in the middle. And then my left eye, 9 months later, that took 4 hours. So life deals the cards, you play with the hand you're dealt. And you can play with a bad hand and win. So far, so good.
So did it impact your storytelling anyways?
Yes, it made me a storyteller. I honestly say that my loss of sight and my illness has been in many ways the best teacher I have ever encountered. Because I was so ill, it put me in a very confined space with myself for a long period of time. And I also had to do a very thorough and very honest audit of my skills and talents so I could work out, because I was 25? And I'd fallen deeply in love the year before, the kind of once in a lifetime love. It doesn't come twice. And so I thought to myself, I knew that when I accepted my eyesight was not going to return, I was very glad that my physical strength and health began to return. But I realized this was going to be my life. So I had to make it a full and a rich life. And also I'd fallen in love with this amazing woman. I had to make sure I was somebody worth loving. So the storytelling is part of my answer to the huge question asked me by life, which I do see as a gift. It made me, falling in love made me for the first time in my life want to grow up. And being ill gave me the opportunity to grow up in my own way. Because there wasn't a chance of doing all the graduate career things that somebody with my background in education is expected to do. So what could I do? What am I good at? And it's tricked me into leading the life I should have been leading anyway and didn't have the courage to. It made me.
Yes. So it is always said that if you have something lost in your life, you gain somewhere through that loss also.
Yeah,
So,
people like to say that when you lose your sight, other senses are heightened to compensate. No, it's not true. I do believe if you lose your mobile phone, all your other senses are heightened. Where is it? But you learn to adapt, not compensate. Your other senses are highlighted. And I mean, for example, people also often like to say, oh, everything happens for a reason. I'm not sure. I don't know if that's true. What I do know is that by the way you answer the challenges that life sets you, if you're lucky, you can make something meaningful out of the strange and apparently meaningless things that happen to you. Now, whether that means they happen for a reason or that you find reason in it, I don't think that really matters. It doesn't matter to me anymore.
okay. So now it's time to listen. And I saw a short story from you, Giles. Please tell our audience any story that has touched your soul.
Oh, blimey. All right, then. This is a story that some of your audience may know because it's a very well-known character in Turkish storytelling called Nasruddin Hoxha, who's known globally. But when I first heard this story, I already knew it, but I knew a different version. The Turkish version features donkeys and a man. This one, I was told this because this is what I love about this, is it's to do with the way that stories cross borders, change their hat, change their suit, change their language, become a different person, but they are still the same story underneath. It's again, I'm going back to structures. I learned this story from when I was growing up in southwest London. I used to play with a kid across the street, and his father told me this story. His father used to be a television producer, and he told me that during the building of the huge BBC television centre in Shepherd's Bush, a massive, massive complex, he told me that the BBC has got security guards all the time there to make sure that things don't come in that shouldn't come in, and things don't leave which shouldn't leave. And with all the building work going on, whilst the centre was first being constructed, the security guards were very busy because, of course, you want to keep an eye on making sure that nobody's leaving with valuable commodities, equipment. And there was one security guard that had a bee in his bonnet, a fire in his head about one particular builder, a young man who had a look on his face of the kind of, I know something you don't know. Every time he left in the evening, he'd be pushing a wheelbarrow full of rubbish. But he looked so pleased with himself, the security guard was sure he was stealing something. And so one day he couldn't take it and said, stop. All right, what's up? I reckon you're stealing. That's quite an accusation, sir. I'm hurt. Well, I'm going to search that. And so the security guard searched through all the rubbish in the wheelbarrow. It was packing material, it was tape, parcel tape, it was broken bits of wood and timber from cartons and boxes and planks, and nothing of any value. Is that all right then? Yeah, go on. But the next day there was that young man again, still with that cocky look on his face, still with that, and more earrings, more jewels, slightly small, flashy clothes. He was definitely making money somewhere. The security guard stopped again, searched again, found nothing but trash. He just couldn't understand it. He thought, all right, I'll pretend I've given up. And then I'll wait for him to really start bringing out the nice stuff, and then I'll catch him. And so for a long time, he let that young man go, all right, yeah, I am. Hello, nice to see you. Every day, a cheeky, all right, comment. And the security guard just let it pass, let it pass, let it pass, until one day, stop. And the young man looked really, the security guard thought, I've got it now. And he searched through that wheelbarrow. And do you think he found anything up her? He found nothing. He was so demoralized, he quit his job. He had some money saved, he opened a fruit and veg store. Or fruit and veg shop. It was a good business. In those days, fruit and veg stores were a good business. Now it's all supermarkets. Well, years later, a young man came, well, not so young anymore, a man came in with his wife and a child, and this man had done well, he was nicely dressed. And the fruit and veg man recognized him. It was Wheelbarrow Boy. And he served him, and he was putting the apples in the bag, and there you go, that's for you, sir. And yes, you don't recognize me, do you? No, I don't. Think back. Imagine a black cap, black jacket, shepherd's bush. Oh my God! They recognised each other. They were, it was lovely. It was delightful. And said, listen, I've not been a security guard for decades. I'm out of that game. I don't have any contacts, and I don't hold a grudge. But just do me a favour. No, I was just to say congratulations, because this is a really good business. Yeah, it is. But I'm still going to die unhappy. Why? Because I know you were nicking something. All this time, and I'm going to go to my grave asking myself, what was he nicking? Please, just make me die happy and tell me, what were you stealing? And the young man, not so young now, looked and said, I was stealing wheelbarrows.
Wow.
Do you know that story? The Nasruddin version is he's crossing the border with a donkey, and there's lots of straw on the top of the donkey, and the border guard keeps searching the straw, trying to find out what Nasruddin is smuggling. And in fact, Nasruddin was smuggling donkeys.
Great. This was really fantastic. I have read about one more story on your Facebook page, which is, I think, about to come, Ghost on Ship.
A ghost ship?
Yes, ghost ship. Yes. So can you just tell a little about that?
Yes. It's not an online event. It's live in person. There is a boat moored on the banks of the River Thames near Southwark Cathedral, and it is the Golden Hind. It's the boat which the Elizabethan explorer, Sir Francis Drake, used to sail around the world and used to attack Spanish ships and steal a lot of money from them and do a lot of other things. I mean, he became a very famous British naval commander. He was a lot of pretty unsavory things as well. He was a slave trader, he was a pirate. But that's his ship, and it's now a museum. And it's it's so small. You can't imagine being cramped in there for however long it took to sail around the world. And so this year I'm going to be telling Halloween stories on Halloween for children and then for adults. And both children and adults are invited to come in their best Halloween costumes. Halloween in Europe is to do with before Christianity, it was New Year. It's when the season of growth comes to an end and the season of winter begins. So it's a hinge in the year. And so it's also when you reap your crop and you kill it in order to support your life. So it's a time when death and life are very close. And so the tradition has arisen that Halloween is when you're more likely to see ghosts. I know that. Also, if people are interested, because of the pandemic and having to do a lot of storytelling online, I had quite a lot of recordings of stories that I'd made. And so it took me a long time because I'm not very good with computers. But I eventually managed to convert my website, www.gilesabbott.com, in such a way that there are now really good quality recordings of stories, some of them videos, some of them audio, which people can go to, and I think the price is fair. And yeah, I mean, it's like, in England, it's the price of a cup of coffee or a sandwich or a pint of beer. Not much more than that. And there's hours of storytelling on there if people are interested, some for adults, some for children. And if you rummage around carefully, you might even find some free ones.
Wow, that's really good to know. And thank you, Giles, for such wonderful story and for your precious time from your such a busy schedule. So thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to take an interview of yours.
And thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to talk about myself. It's such a lovely thing to do. It's very kind of you to ask me. Dhanyavad.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Giles. So, friends, if you wish to see other episodes of Spotlight with Abha, do subscribe to my YouTube channel. And yes, please don't forget to press the bell icon right there with subscription button so that you can get immediate notification of my latest videos. So, this is Abha Jadhav along with Giles Abbott signing off now. Stay happy, healthy, and keep watching Spotlight with Abha. See you soon in the next episode. Till then, bye-bye, namaste, and Jai Hind.